This is America, and this is Capitol Hill, known to some as America's retirement home. That's because the average age of US politicians is significantly older than the people they represent. Why does the US keep on electing older politicians, and why is it so hard for younger people to win office? I'll have more on that in a moment, but first, it's over to Neave Barker in our Washington studio.
Thank you, Rory. Well, there isn't much that Americans can agree on these days when it comes to politics, but there is one thing that almost all voters agree on, regardless of whether they support the Democrats or the Republicans, and that is that politicians are too old. The president just turned 80. The oldest sitting senator is 92. 3 of the oldest 10 politicians have been in office since 1981, the year I was born. That's 45 years, or almost 20% of the time that America has been a republic. And so far this term, 5 members of Congress have died. They were all 65 or older. Others have been in hospital for falls and health scares.
Other breaking news right now from Capitol Hill. Senator Chuck Grassley is in the hospital, we're told. The 90-year-old Iowa Republican is the oldest senator.
Developing tonight, Maryland Congressman Steny Hoyer is recovering from a stroke.
Next tonight, Senator Mitch McConnell, the former Senate Majority Leader, is in the hospital. McConnell has struggled with his health in recent years.
So let's look at the sheer scale of the public appetite for reform here. Recent polling reveals an absolute consensus among the American public that things need to change on the question of implementing a maximum age limit for members of Congress. A massive 80% of Americans say yes, they support a hard ceiling. And if you think this is just a partisan issue, think again. It crosses the divide entirely. 78% of Democrats, 79% of independents, and 83% of Republicans are all in agreement that candidates can simply get too old for the job. But it's not just about age caps. When asked about term limits to stop career politicians from staying in office for decades, that support jumps even higher to 83% nationwide. Well, now those limits aren't being considered by Congress. It's not really in their interest to do so. So why are politicians here so much older than the average working American? Well, here's Rory Challenge to explain.
Donald Trump chose to celebrate his 80th birthday surrounded by people less than half his age. UFC fighters and their fans skew young, mostly men under 35.
I just can't believe that we're at the White House watching UFC fights.
Trump has busted many political norms. The White House has seen plenty of policy brawls, but never an actual cage fight. But in other ways, this scene was fitting. America's politicians are significantly older than the people they represent. Some have come to know the Senate as America's retirement home. That's because the average age of US senators is 64. That's 2 years older than when you can first start claiming Social Security payments for early retirement. Meanwhile, the median age of House members is 57. Chuck Grassley, the oldest sitting senator, is 92.
What are my thoughts about what?
Running for re-election in 2026.
Senate leader Mitch McConnell was 83 when age caught up with him, and he announced he wouldn't seek re-election.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
As for Donald Trump, well, he is the oldest person to ever be sworn in as US president. Joe Biden was 82 when he left office.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
Barack Obama, an outlier, just 47 years old when he became president in 2009. So why are younger politicians, like Obama was, so notably unusual here? For Congress, at least, where there are no term limits, incumbency has huge benefits. Sitting politicians have re-election rates of over 90%. There's little incentive to retire because longevity is rewarded with the top positions. It takes decades to build the money and the networks needed for effective fundraising. Plus, older Americans are just more reliable voters than younger ones, and they tend to favour what they see as experience. But even the most powerful man in the world can't fight off old age indefinitely, and questions are increasingly being asked of Trump's capabilities.
Have you been at classified meetings where Donald Trump
has fallen asleep or had trouble staying awake.
I've never been at any meeting where, and the things you're showing me now, he was not falling asleep.
The White House and the president's personal physician insist he is in excellent health. And certainly, US politicians prove that in this town, age ain't nothing but a number. Rory Challens, Al Jazeera, Washington.
OK, we are joined now by Lee Drutman, a senior fellow in the political reform program at New America, where he focuses on electoral reform, Congress and democratic health, and Rina Shah, political strategist and former senior congressional GOP advisor. A very warm welcome to both of you. Thanks for your time. Lee, if I can start with you, because the US political landscape is often referred to as a gerontocracy, a leadership of mostly elderly, august men. Is this American system, you think, structurally rigged against anybody who hasn't been collecting a pension for the last decade?
It's not structurally rigged, but it is structurally inclined to benefit those who have been around for a long time, and the climb for those who are younger is very steep indeed.
What do you mean by very steep?
There are a lot of things that you have to overcome if you're a young person who wants to run for Congress. You've got to start by raising a lot of money, which is hard to do if you don't have high net worth networks that you might accumulate. You've got to build a reputation and a name for yourself, which is hard to do. And you've got to wait for somebody who's been around for a long time to step aside. So really, you just probably got to get lucky. So there are a lot of obstacles. Some people can do it if they get lucky and they happen to catch the right moment. But for a lot of younger people, it is tremendously difficult.
Really, let's talk about how people perhaps exploit the right moment, because you've been a senior GOP congressional advisor. Put us inside the room. Let's say a brilliant 28-year-old wants to challenge a 70-year-old incumbent in a primary. What does the party machine do at that time? Does it keep the system leaning towards maintaining the more senior politician in the chair, or does it give that newbie a chance?
Well, the party machine always wants the best chance of winning. So the best chance of winning is with the incumbent. And I think when you look at this more broadly, how people approach politics these days here in these United States is with a great amount of skepticism. You don't see younger people going right into the party apparatus and saying that I want to start from the bottom and get to the top. You see people wanting to be more disruptors these days. And I think we can actually say that's fair on both sides of the aisle. Inevitably, I think what we are sitting in is, again, having gotten to this moment, I've looked at how we got here, and I think it's a combination of the forces that are, again, put in the structure, but also it's very much a feeling. Politics is a feeling in this era, and I think the feeling is that why should I bother with having to do this really hard work when in the end I probably got the stack of cards, or the deck rather, against me.
We're talking about stacks of cards and decks. Let's talk about stacks of business cards, because, your research, Lee, focuses heavily on money and lobbying. Let's be clear about it. Young challengers simply do not have Rolodexes of business cards and, reams of contacts within DC lobby firms. But I do wonder how people get a shoe in here. But before you answer that, I'd like to hear from the Georgia Democratic Senator Jon Ossoff, who's been pretty pointed about this. He says the American political system pretty much stands against the youth. Let's listen to that.
Because how does American politics really work? It's coin operated. Money goes in, favors come out. It's been running on secret money, corporate money, billionaire money, both sides. It's why members of Congress don't listen to the people. They listen to their donors.
Yeah, I think it's important to remind our viewers that Jon Ossoff is a pretty unique case. He is one of the youngest people to enter office since Joe Biden, the youngest US senator elected since Joe Biden in 1972. He's 39 years old. He's a voice of the young. He's attracting an awful lot of attention. What do you think of his message there? He seems to think very much that the system, in terms of campaign finances, is fundamentally rigged against younger people.
Well, I think he's right. He is an exception. It is very hard to become a U.S. senator at the ripe young age of 39. And part of that is, you've got to raise a lot of money to get to that level. And as you said, and unless you're well established and you have a network of people you can call to write big checks, it is very hard to advance. And I think he's absolutely right that there is a tremendous amount that a small number of people with a lot of money control in our politics. And the American people are really fed up with that. And that's part of the anti-system moment that we're in, is people feel like politics is bought and sold.
Go ahead, Rina.
Yeah, I must say, one thing I love about Lee's work, my colleague here, is that he's opening up the facts. He's bringing the facts to the people, that this is what it is out there. And when you look at the facts, and I've seen this as a political strategist when I've gone into communities, and you tell people something they don't know about the system, they either get enraged or indifferent. And that, I think, is really the defining thing about this era, is people are either choosing not to politically participate because they, again, see how much is out there that is really frightening, actually. If you want to come and represent your community in Congress, it is not an easy thing to do. You've got to start to plant your flag and tell people you want to run years in advance sometimes. And so when I think about the influence of big money and really all else, I see why younger people hate the system and actually want to rage against it.
All right, Rina, Lee, let's take a pause because we've been gauging the mood of some voters. Many feel their interests just simply aren't being represented by those in high office. Heidi Jo Castro went to the US Capitol to talk to voters about whether they think the current makeup of Congress represents them and whether they think there should be age limits.
The median age of lawmakers here at the US Capitol is, well, kind of up there, well above the median age of the American population, which according to the U.S. Census is 39.1 years old. What is your age?
28.
Do you feel like someone who's in their 60s adequately represents you in Congress?
They can if they have the same beliefs as me.
Do you have any concern with this current age range that we have in Congress, up to 92 years old?
Again, it depends on the individual's mental faculties, but if they're sentient and, acting normal, then I have no issues.
Well, a lot of people in my generation definitely think that the people in Congress should be younger and have more representation for people of ages that will be here in the future more.
Too old. There need to be term limits. And I'm almost 73, so because I think we need new voices.
The U.S. Constitution does not set a maximum age for serving in Congress, but it does set minimums. A senator can be no younger than 30. A U.S. House representative, no younger than 25. Democrat Maxwell Frost just made the age cutoff when he was elected to represent Florida's 10th district at the very young age of 25. He's now 29 and still serving.
Why it's important as political leaders that we have different messengers who can speak to young people to help them realize their own political power.
He says he's seeing a growing number of young people wanting to get involved in politics at all levels.
People across the entire country running for city council, school board, people even not just running for office, but organizing in their community.
But here on Capitol Hill, having young people in control of the corridors of power is very much still the exception and not the rule, as the older generation still dominates Washington.
Lee, I do wonder to what extent this isn't really a failure of the political system here, that it's just the way democracy works in the United States, because the people who actually come out in abundance to pick the party candidates in the primaries, they're overwhelmingly older, and they're the ones that end up rubber stamping these veteran politicians. So, I mean, if the electorate prefers familiarity, if it prefers aging faces, I mean, how would you explain this?
Well, there's a bit of a circularity there, right? I mean, one of the reasons that young people are checked out of politics is because they don't see people like them represented in the halls of power. And so, then they say, well, there's nobody for me to vote for, so, what's the point of getting involved? Whereas older people say, oh, yeah, well, we've been voting for this guy since the late 1920s. So, a trusted name. And that creates this circularity. So people can only choose the candidates that are offered to them. So if the young person is not running for office, it's hard for young people to get out and vote for that young person, but then the old person stays in and the old people keep voting for the old people. But it's interesting from that segment, it was actually the older woman who says, actually, we want some young people.
Well, I think that woman knows that the average retirement age across the country, coast to coast, is anywhere from 61 to 67. So she at 73 is saying, what are all these people who are much older than her doing there?
I love the fact that the younger gentleman set the bar quite low as to what he wanted from his politicians. He said all that he would like is for somebody to be sentient and acting normal. I have no issues with that. I mean, that sets the bar pretty low, doesn't it?
I mean,
what does that
he's
say
an
about the
anomaly,
political
actually.
landscape?
No, he's an anomaly because right now, another thing about this era is that people are voting against the other party rather than voting truly for their candidate. And I think systems also, there's been a lot more awareness about systems when you're looking state to state, who's got ranked choice voting versus winner takes all systems. I'm really glad there's a growing awareness about that because people, for example, in California recently, there was a lot of awareness around how people make it through these jungle primaries, the top two situations, and who gets there and how they get there in certain political environments. So this is all really good in that we have this technology shedding light on how political reform can make our lives better. But one thing that cannot change at the level of reform that maybe activists like I could do and could advocate for is the decision at the Supreme Court, which is Citizens United, allowing there to be such big money influencing politics. I've worked for members of Congress. I've understood what their schedules look like because I've set that time. I've actually physically held one's hand and taken them to call time across the street at the National Republican Congressional Committee because that's built into their schedules. They must dial for dollars. It's an awful thing when you see it up close because that's less time they spend working with their colleagues or crafting solutions for our problems. We have a big federal government now, and so we need more younger people or people who are closer to the problem to represent us at the federal level, not people who are well past the retirement age.
Rina, let me ask you this then, because from a Republican, I do wonder whether conservative American political culture has in some way kind of conflated youth with recklessness. I mean, does that make it culturally harder for younger candidates to break through? Is there a kind of perceived danger in unbridled idealism in America?
I love your question, and I understand where it's coming from, but actually not anymore. We've got a massive organization called Turning Point USA, whose founder was assassinated in cold blood just last year, and his name was Charlie Kirk. So Turning Point USA, what Charlie Kirk did was take it to college campuses and galvanized young conservatives. So ever since Turning Point USA actually had a really big role to play in Donald Trump's first campaign, but more so in the
well, he was directly appealing to a Christian evangelical base as well.
Right on, but you have seen people who are not Christian evangelicals feel drawn to that messaging, that there's a community there. And in the second winning campaign of Trump's, you saw, again, Turning Point USA have this outsized influence on young conservatives and how they engage. So I think that sentiment that was really there very strongly before is actually being watered down more so now. But I myself am a centrist now and can only speak about what I saw in the previous era, pre-Trump on the Republican side. And I do think it's changing. So I'm hopeful about that. Even though you may not agree with Turning Point USA, you can at least say that they've galvanized a crop of young conservatives.
Understood. Let's pivot now to talking about the health of America's leaders and Donald Trump himself. Before we do that, let's bring in some more voices. We've got 19-year-old Republican activist Briley Hollyhand, who says it's time for the younger generation to engage, and a man I'm sure you know, Democrat James Tallarico, who's running for the Senate in Texas for the midterms. He says he shares Gen Z's disillusionment.
You should be sitting at the table right here, right now. Because you'd be amazed. The rooms that I walk in constantly, every single day where I'm the youngest person, time after time, we've got some retirement home folks sitting in Washington, D.C. that look me in the eye and say, sit down, shut up, you're too young. Come back when you can pull Social Security and maybe you have an opinion then. That's in no way, shape, or form saying go vote for one party or the other. It's just saying go vote. Go change the status quo.
The American dream is on life support. 90% of baby boomers went on to earn more money than their parents. For millennials like me, it's 50%. And for Gen Z, it's even lower. 50 years of the top 1% rigging this economic system and this political system for their own benefit at our expense. Being disillusioned means being freed from illusions.
So, both red, both blue, and the running theme is disillusionment, a feeling that younger people in some way trapped in this circular system that you referred to a little bit earlier, Lee. But let's talk about Donald Trump. He's just turned 80 on Sunday. He hosted that high-octane UFC rumble on the White House lawn on Sunday. How do you read this? Is this performative showmanship? Is he trying to associate himself with the youth by osmosis here? How do you read it, Lee?
I just read it as another episode in his showmanship. Right? I mean, he's an entertainer. He's a promoter. He's just trying to make things wild and crazy and interesting. I don't see it as an attempt for him to drink from the fountain of youth of young men wrestling each other to injury.
Right. Yes, we cherish the image.
I actually disagree in some way, though. I do think he was trying to project strength.
Okay.
It's a barbaric sport with, majority men dominated. There were female fighters. They tried. Dana White, the head of UFC, had said he had trouble getting a women's card going. And also the audience was relatively handpicked. There were military members. Trump wanted to project the image of strength. Either the country's strength or his strength, we don't fully know. But I thought that was very interesting. And also all the logos of corporations that were there.
Yes, there was most certainly money to be made. We're not fully aware of how much money was made. But it is an interesting weekend, isn't it? Because we've had Senator Mitch McConnell, 84 years old. He has gone to hospital. He's said to be in excellent care there, getting all the treatment that he needs. We wish him, of course, well. But he is a man that has very publicly shown a degree of frailty. What sort of message, Rina, does that say?
Well, he's froze up publicly twice now. And for whatever medical reason, I wouldn't know. I'm not a medical doctor. But freezing up like that at a podium where you're supposed to be speaking, you're the leader. I think that's a terrible look. And I wish Senator McConnell, I wish him well. But I wish he'd also make a decision to leave office. And actually, there's a relatively newish law in the books in Kentucky that says that the current Democrat Kentucky governor could not make an appointment, fill his seat. So they'd have to hold a special election. So I don't know why Republicans in Kentucky feel like they need to hold on to him. Yes, he is a giant of a man. He's been there so long. But see, this is what's wrong. We're just giving reverence out of age. I'm one to respect my elders,
that's an
but
interesting
it's
point.
getting ridiculous.
That's an interesting point. Look, it's a 24/7 world, isn't it? I mean, can any octogenarian president realistically keep up with what's going on in the world? Or does he have to lean on unelected officials just to keep this presidency going? Last thoughts to both of you, starting with you, Lee.
I mean, every president has to lean on a broad staff. But there are very few people who can, into their 80s, can remain cognitively lucid all the time. And you have somebody who is leading the country who, looks to me increasingly sort of mentally all over the place. I mean, I don't think he's ever been particularly stable, but seems increasingly unstable. And that's really dangerous. Sure, you want to lean on people. The staff do a lot of the work, but you want somebody at the top of the organization who is with it. And, I mean, what company has a CEO who is 80 years old?
Well, on that point, Lee, I mean, commercial airline pilots forced to retire at 65, air traffic controllers of 56. I mean, when we talk in these kind of contexts, we're often accused of ageism for even bringing this up. But your final thoughts, Rina, what do you think here? 24/7 world, is it a lot to ask of our leaders?
No, not at all. If you're choosing to have the highest perch in the land, you need to be fit for the job. Speaking of companies, I mean, CEOs have to answer to their boards of directors. We need to be a board of directors in this country. We need to say we need term limits. We need big money out of American politics. We need to start to advocate for the ideals we genuinely believe in and worry less about offending people. I think also more than vitality, that reflection of vitality, what I want our leaders, the next president, to do is be more close to the people in socioeconomic status, be a person of the people. And also, might I add, we women make up more than half of the U.S. population. It's high time we had a woman as president.
Yeah, well said, well said. Lee, turning to you, I mean, the U.S. is currently governed by leaders who may not be alive to see some of the policies that they've introduced actually bear fruit. We're talking about AI, we're talking about environmental issues, we're talking about national debt. I mean, is gerontocracy inherently a betrayal of America's future?
Well, not inherently, but The problem is when you don't hear from the next generation, when they're not in the room, when they're not offering their perspective, you can get a skewed perspective. It's hard to keep up with the technology. It's hard to keep up with the challenges. And it's not that you can't represent the future, but you don't understand the stakes in the same way when they are your stakes.
Rina?
Well said. I think this is a moment where we can choose what we want as a country. And I think we want younger people who, again, feel close to the problem, feel like it's easy to address a problem or come up with a solution because they themselves are living with it. And there will come a time where the people will rise up and say no more. And I think we're getting very close to that.
What do you mean people will rise up and say no more?
No more of the gerontocracy. You're watching Congress get rich because they won't even pass a ban on insider trading. We should never expect lawmakers to regulate themselves. But what I'm saying is that people are dying in Congress because of how rich it makes them. Our founders never intended that. The representative democracy we have enshrined in our Constitution never intended for that either.
All right. Look, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to both of you. Lee Drutman, Senior Fellow in the Political Reform Program at New America, and Rina Shah, former Senior Congressional GOP Advisor and Political Strategist. It's been a joy wading through this incredibly interesting side of American politics. And that's all from the team here in Washington. Handing back to Rory Challens at Al Jazeera's global headquarters in Doha.
Don't forget, you can always watch the latest episode of This is America Monday through Friday, 18:30 GMT. That's 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time if you're watching here in the United States. From all of us here in Washington, D.C., it's goodbye for now.